a weekend of football, Colin.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. San Francisco, off that Dallas win, Debo gets hurt, McCaffrey not there for a big chunk of it. It did, and Cleveland's defense is loaded. So I kind of felt like if you're going to lose, the kicker had a makeable field goal, missed it. That's about as good a loss. And let's be honest about Philadelphia. They've been screwing around for weeks. I said this before in my preamble. They're a really good team that doesn't quite know what they are. And that's where coordinators come in. Like they cinch it up, a good coordinator, and you find an identity. Edelman told me last week on the show, he said, every September, Bill's trying to find the identity. You could bring the same roster back. You'd have a different identity. Philadelphia doesn't know what they are. They're just really talented. And eventually they got bit. After all these weeks of winning, they got bit.
I might sound like a homer here, but to me, the Niners is a good loss because they legitimately got outplayed. Bosa said it after the game. We didn't deserve to win that game. The Eagles were in full control of the game. All they had to do, speaking of coordinators, you look at the box score. DeAndre Swift, who has been a fantastic addition for him, had 10 carries. The Jets are not built for you to lean on them. You drop back to pass what they did about 800 times a day. That puts the Jets in advantage. And I understand some corners are out. Who cares? Their defensive lineman, Lane Johnson's in the locker room. So it makes it even easier for the 10 defensive linemen that the Jets have. The guy they drafted last year in the first round, Johnson's playing fantastic. They got several other guys. Their linebackers were flying around. I did not understand. And listen, they've struggled, Brian Johnson, to get a rhythm with this offense like Shane Steichen had last year. It was pretty clear today, just run the ball. And they just kept passing it. And that ultimately, obviously, Jalen has had some off games. The pass at the end of the game was devastating. We could nitpick letting them score, right? You had a minute 40. If you stop them twice, you only need a field goal to win. But regardless, that pick and that spot, and really the reason they were there, they just were obsessed with passing. I didn't understand why they didn't just run it down their throat.
Well, I mean, I think this is one of the things you get into is coordinators, sometimes selfishly, or they just get into a tunnel. They're not thinking about the macro level or the team. They're thinking about, I've got my plays. We've worked on them. I know they'll work. The Jets are down a corner, and they kind of live in a tunnel. And it's like, this is why, by the way, John, as you know, why some coaches like to have control of their offense or their defense is that, special teams coaches, you get paid more if you have more block kicks.
Yeah.
But but there are times you don't want to go for a block kick and get a penalty and give a team a first down. And so I think sometimes Philadelphia, remember, Sirianni struggled when he was play calling. He struggled. And then he gave it over to Steichen, who's brilliant, and they flourished. So then they hire Steichen's replacement, and he's not as good as Shane. So the offense isn't as good. So they don't need to go back to Sirianni, but I thought they got a little exposed today. And I also think in this league is nobody's going 17-0. And Philadelphia, how many weeks in a row? They hadn't played a complete game all season. They had a really good second half against Tampa. They had halves. They had series. And they tend to be really good in moments because they've been in so many big games. Philadelphia is a big game, big city, loud media. They're a pressurized organization. You know that. They've been in big spots.
Yeah.
The Jets usually fail in those spots. But I think eventually in this league, you screw around, you mess around, when you're a little kid and your mom, don't play with the oven, don't screw around with the electrical sockets and put a nickel in there. You get shocked eventually, and Philadelphia did.
Another thing that, his box score wasn't great. He's not going to throw for 300 yards, but it's pretty evident. And I think we talked about this, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, was Zach Wilson. He has improved. He is a functional player. He's not living up to the number 2 overall pick. He doesn't look like he's going to be Trevor Lawrence anytime soon, but he played pretty serviceable today. He had some really good plays on some boot actions with guys in his face, dumping it off. I thought, relative to the bar that he set last year, he's definitely improved. And to me, the organization, because I thought it was crazy to keep him, because obviously you're just one snap away as a backup quarterback, and you got a 40-year-old quarterback who tears Achilles. But they've done a pretty good job. Clearly, the running back's really good. Breece Hall, he's a star.
Yeah.
And the defense. But I give Zach Wilson some credit, like Justin Fields, for just staying mentally tough when both guys could have tapped out early in the season.
I want to talk about a game fewer people watch, Baltimore and Tennessee. Baltimore struggled in the red zone, but I got to tell you, the first half by Lamar Jackson was brilliant. Sidearm, moving, pocket. John, I think he is so dynamic as an athlete that we're not giving him credit now. He's gotten significantly better as a pocket thrower. He really has become Josh Allen, because he has such a howitzer. He was a bad thrower initially with a lot of turnovers, but because he's such a power thrower that we still consider him thrower first, runner second, even though in previous 2 years, he ran at Lamar's level. Lamar was so profound and had a quirky delivery, right? Like he couldn't play from behind. I watched that first half and I'm like, Jesus, if you told me a dark horse to the Super Bowl, Baltimore, Zay Flowers keeps getting better. Odell had a catch today. Aguilar, it's amazing. Aguilar with New England and Mac Jones looked like it's over.
I know.
He had a play today where he almost busted it for 70 yards. And it's like, as we know, the quarterback makes the receiver. Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona, the better the quarterback, the better the Larry. I know a lot of people didn't watch it, and they have struggled in the red zone with injuries. Boy, Lamar, he has become a legitimate pocket guy with movement.
I thought one of the best halves of football that has been played, and it was on clear display as we realized how good Cleveland's defense is, was Lamar a couple weeks ago against them. And, Deshaun missed that game DTR was in, and he just eviscerated him in the first half. I think I completely agree. One, I think Steve Young is the best total package of all time. But really, by the mid 90s, he was a pure pocket quarterback. He was not a runner. Michael Vick, and I saw it firsthand in Philly, was such a reckless runner because he couldn't slide. So he took a lot of shots. Lamar, to me, has become kind of the total package of a lot like Jalen Hurts. They know how to avoid hits. They are not getting mollywopped down the field. Lamar's faster than Jalen. But as you saw today against the Jets, Lamar probably has a little more touch currently, the way he's playing this year than Jalen for sure. So, they got a bunch of injuries. They have been really good for the most part this season. And again, I go back to a couple weeks ago. When you have that ability against, right now the best defense in the league in Cleveland, you can beat anyone on any given week. And they always, for whatever reason, get a million guys injured. But he's proven, and last year was weird with the money, the contract going back and forth, the no agent. They've clearly got that figured out. And he, to me, when I watch him right now all season long, he's been fantastic. I think he's definitely, I wouldn't even call him an MVP dark horse anymore. He's smack dab in the mix.
And if you didn't watch the Steeler game, they lost. They completely outplayed them. They had 2 touchdowns dropped. So that's one of those games, because the NFL to a large
I think
degree,
eight total drops. Now he did have a bad pick in that game, but yeah, he had a bunch of drops.
That NFL is still largely, except Sunday night, Monday night, a regional television product. So if you live Denver West, you don't see Lamar in a lot of these games. So, and most people out West did not get up early like I did to watch this game. That Pittsburgh game, they totally outplayed him. But Tennessee's a physical team, and God, Lamar was good. One other thing in the NFL, I got to give credit. 2 things can be true. That the Rams would not have won a Super Bowl without Matt Stafford. And Jared Goff and the Lions, outside of Philly and San Francisco, they have the talent people think Dallas does. I watched them today. I mean, they don't have great corners, pass rush, playmakers, O-line, coordinators. Brad Holmes upstairs and that executive suite, this is a really good roster. It's not San Francisco, but I think it's in the class of Philadelphia. And again, if you had Brock Purdy and his contract, you could have 2 more stars. So you could go buy a star corner. They could go, they can buy a McCaffrey. They can keep 2 great linebackers. I think Stafford's good and McVay's having a great year, but I watched Detroit today and I'm like, hey, they are the Cowboys. They have the better quarterback. Right? We talked Dan Quinn. They have Ben Johnson. They have a better pass rush. They have a better offensive line. I think Detroit's really good.
I'm glad you brought them up because I think they're a sneaky dark horse for the number 1 seed. Look at their schedule. They have not played Minnesota yet. They have not played the Bears yet. They already beat Green Bay in Green Bay, so they get them at home. I mean, the toughest game on their schedule, they won week 1 against the Chiefs. They still got Denver. They still got the Raiders. I mean, this team, the talent they have. The other thing is the trade they made with Stafford. Think of the players that netted them. Even last year, what did they do? Everyone's like, you can't take a running back in the first round. Well, they traded back and they added the tight end as well, who's fantastic. They got today Jamison Williams touchdown. They drafted him last year, torn ACL, one of the fastest players in the league. To me, they're high-end impact players. Or now they're a little younger than the Eagles and the Niners, but they have a chance with the tight end, with the wide receiver. St. Brown is fantastic. How about that touchdown he had today? The way Goff's playing, right? I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Aiden Hutchinson has a chance to be one of the better pass rushers. They have a bunch of Pro Bowl high-end guys. And when you have that on any, they destroyed Tampa. I mean, they shoved that game to me was, and Tampa's maybe not be bad. I mean, Tampa has a lot of high-end players too, and they shoved them around on the road off a bye.
Go to that game 2 weeks ago against Green Bay. It was not physically competitive. Like, I don't know if the Packers had 5 starters. You know, Jair Alexander clearly starts.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the Packers had 5 starters that would start for Detroit. Like, their O-line has to be 2 or 3 in the league. And, you know, Goff's funny. I've said for years, I think Goff's a better Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan won an MVP. He's a better Matt Ryan. I think he moves a little better, stronger arm, number 1 pick. You know, it's again, I think people forget Goff got to a Super Bowl. Goff couldn't beat San Francisco. Well, hell, the Rams can't beat him with Stafford.
No.
That's a bad matchup. You start looking now, like the Rams got the ring with Stafford, but they've got a big decision to make. Like, they have about 5 needs next year, and they can only get about 3 of those for immediate help if they have a rookie quarterback. And they can, I don't know what they do with Stafford. He's still good. So was Kupp. So was Donald. But let's talk Rams as they beat Arizona.